On the third morning of our hiking trip, the forest was swallowed by a dense, milky fog. We could barely see 3 feet ahead, but even through the haze, we all saw her, a small girl standing perfectly still between the trees, and every time the fog thinned, she appeared closer. If you're enjoying this story so far, please subscribe and leave a like. It helps me create more horror stories for you. I never believed forests could feel conscious until the morning everything changed. We were on day 3 of a 4-day hike, me, my girlfriend Lena, and my best friend Mark. The trip was supposed to be relaxing, a break from work, a chance to disconnect. The first 2 days were normal, long trails, decent weather. Nothing unusual except the occasional cold pocket of air that made us joke about ghosts. But on that third morning, when I unzipped the tent and looked outside, the world had turned white. Not snowy, not misty, white. The fog was so thick it looked solid, like a wall. The tree line had vanished, the sky erased, and the silence. The air didn't just feel quiet, it felt held. I stepped out barefoot, the wet earth cold against my skin. A strange pressure filled the air, heavy and expectant, like someone watching from behind a curtain. "Whoa," Mark said, stepping out of his tent with messy hair. "I can't see a damn thing." Lena poked her head out from behind me. "That's not normal fog." It wasn't fog. Usually drifted, shifted, moved with the wind. This fog just sat there, dense, suspended, waiting. We packed up slowly, half joking about horror movies, half trying not to admit that something felt wrong. Even as we joked, we kept glancing behind us, expecting shapes to form in the whiteness. We moved along the trail, sticks crunching under our boots. Every sound felt unnaturally sharp. Every breath echoed inside the fog. After about 30 minutes, I noticed something through the haze, a human shape. I stopped so suddenly that Lena bumped into me. "What?" she whispered. "Someone's there." The silhouette appeared small, thin, maybe 4 feet tall. "A kid, out here?" "That's impossible," Mark said. "No one hikes with kids this far from the trailhead." But she was there, a little girl standing completely still among the trees, bare feet on the forest floor, long hair hanging limp and soaked, a pale dress clinging to her like wet paper. "Hey," I called out. My voice sounded muffled, swallowed by the fog. The girl didn't move. I took 2 steps forward. The fog shifted just, a soft ripple, barely noticeably, and suddenly, she wasn't 20 feet away anymore. She was 10. Lena gasped and grabbed my arm. "Did she move?" "No," Mark whispered. "We would have seen it." But none of us had. The girl was closer now, her face still obscured by the fog, but unmistakably turned toward us. The fog curled around her like fingers. "Maybe she's lost," I said, though the words felt wrong even as they left my mouth. She didn't look lost. She looked placed bait. We backed away slowly, step by step, keeping our eyes locked on her small, motionless frame. The fog swirled lightly, thinning just enough to reveal nothing. She was gone. Mark cursed under his breath. Nope, we're not doing this." Lena grabbed my sleeve. "Can we please keep walking?" We hurried down the trail, moving fast now. The fog thickened behind us, like it was closing in. The trees became ghostly pillars. Even our own bodies seemed washed out, swallowed by white. I tried to convince myself the girl was just some lost camper, a trick of the fog, a weird optical illusion. But every few minutes, I felt the same prickle on the back of my neck, like someone staring. We stopped for a break around noon. If it was even noon. The sun was a faint white disk above, barely visible. "I keep hearing footsteps," Lena whispered. "Soft ones." I had heard them too, but every time we stopped, they stopped. Mark wiped sweat off his forehead. "Tell me I'm not the only one who smelled that." "Smelled what?" I asked. "A scent, like old water, wet clothes, moldy wood." My stomach tightened. It was the same smell that had drifted from the girl's dress. I opened my mouth to say something when Lena's eyes widened. "Hey, Chunny," she whispered. "Behind you." I turned fast and froze. Maybe 15 feet away, through the fog, stood the girl again, closer than before, and this time, we could see her face, pale, expressionless, eyes too wide, too reflective, mouth slightly open as if she were about to speak, but she didn't. She just stared. The fog rippled again and she vanished. This time, I heard the shifting, not a footstep, not a breath, something like a soft slide, like fabric dragging across bark. "Run," Mark said quietly. We did. Branches whipped at us as we tore down the trail. The fog blurred the world into white streaks. The silence shattered with our panting breaths. Every few seconds, I glanced over my shoulder. The fog behind us seemed darker, heavier, as if something moved inside it. After what felt like an hour, we found a clearing, a circular patch where the fog thinned just enough to see the sky. We collapsed, catching our breath. "What the hell was that?" Lena hissed. "No idea," I said. But I knew we weren't alone, because just beyond the clearing, at the edge where the trees disappeared into fog, a small silhouette stood watching, motionless, waiting, and then, for the first time, it stepped forward. The girl stepped forward, one soft, deliberate movement. The fog drifted around her like it was making space. Lena grabbed my hand so tightly my fingers went numb. Mark froze, staring at the small silhouette, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "She's just a kid," he whispered, though none of us believed that anymore. Something about her presence felt wrong in a way I can't describe, like the forest itself recoiled around her. The girl stopped at the edge of the clearing. She didn't move another inch. She just tilted her head to the side, slowly, like she was studying us. Her long wet hair clung to her cheeks. Her dress hung in limp folds. Her bare feet were sunk slightly into the damp, mossy ground. My mouth went dry. "Do you need help?" The girl didn't answer, but the fog around her pulsed, expanding and contracting as if it were breathing. Mark stepped backward. "We need to go now." He wasn't wrong. The clearing felt like temporary safety, a bubble, but I knew the moment we left it, she'd follow. Or worse, she'd appear in front of us again, the way she had before. The girl lifted her arm very slowly. For a moment, I thought she was pointing at us, but her small finger extended sideways toward a narrow trail we hadn't taken, a trail we hadn't even seen before. "What is she doing?" Lena whispered. "Doesn't matter. We're not following her," Mark said. But the girl kept pointing, unblinking, silent, and then her jaw shifted, not opening, not closing, just sliding. A small, unnatural movement, like her face didn't know how to mimic human expressions. Instinct screamed run, but a stronger instinct whispered that if we chose the wrong path, it wouldn't be the forest we were lost in, it would be her. We head opposite, Mark decided, away from her. He took one step backward. The girl lowered her arm, then she stepped again forward. Just one step, but the threat in that single movement was unmistakable. Fog curled up from the ground, like grasping fingers. A low hum filled the air, so faint I thought it was in my head, but Lena heard it. Too, her head snapped up, eyes widening. "What is that?" The hum grew louder, vibrating, tension crawling beneath the earth. I realized with a sinking feeling what it sounded like. A warning, "Go," I yelled. We sprinted from the clearing back onto the main trail. The fog swallowed us instantly. Trees blurred into gray specters. Every direction looked the same. Our boots thudded against damp ground until I couldn't tell which sounds were ours and which were behind us. But something was behind us. I felt it before I heard it, heavy, wet footsteps, not fast, but steady, patient, like whatever followed. Knew we'd get tired long before it did. We ran for what felt like miles, until the fog unexpectedly thinned again, revealing a fork in the trail. Left, Darker woods, thicker fog. Right. A narrow ridge with a slight incline. Right. I gasped. We veered toward the ridge only for the fog to suddenly rush forward, thickening like a white wall. The ridge disappeared. The path vanished beneath churning white. No, 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 Lena cried. It wasn't like this a second ago. The fog wasn't reacting to the weather. It was reacting to us. We backed away from the ridge, and the fog thinned just enough to reveal the path again. Mark cursed. It's controlling where we go. Or she is, Lena whispered. The thought chilled me deeper than the fog. We followed the left path because it was the only path the fog would allow. The deeper we moved, the darker the forest became, even though it was still daytime. The trees grew closer together, their branches dripping with moisture. A faint scent filled the air, wet cloth, rotting leaves, cold, stagnant, water, the same smell as before. We slowed our pace, catching our breaths. Every exhale fogged into the air and dissolved instantly. Even sound felt different. Here muted, smothered. Mark wiped his face with his sleeve. I swear I saw another silhouette back there. Bigger. Don't, Lena begged. Please don't say that. But he wasn't wrong. I had seen something too, a darker shape, much taller than the girl, standing among the trees, watching, not following, just watching. The path narrowed until we had to move single file. I went first, brushing aside low branches. Lena behind me, Mark taking up the rear. Stop, Lena whispered suddenly. I froze. What is it? She didn't answer. Instead, she lifted her trembling hand and pointed ahead. I squinted. Through the fog, there was something on the trail, a small wooden doll, soaked, mud-streaked, lying on its side, facing the direction we'd come from. Its little painted eyes washed out by moisture. Is that hers? Mark whispered. I crouched down slowly. The doll's dress was torn. Its arms were carved crudely, but what stood out most was the shape of its face, round, pale, with hollow black dots where eyes should be. Just like the girl's expressionless stare. This wasn't here when we passed earlier, I said. We didn't pass here earlier, Lena said, voice tightening. This path wasn't even open. She was right. The fog had herded us here. Keep moving, I said, dropping the doll, but feeling its wet texture cling to my fingers, even after I let go. As we walked, branches scraped my shoulders like hands reaching through the fog. I heard whispers, faint, unintelligible like voices carried on the breeze, but the air was still. There was no breeze. The whispers grew louder. They weren't random. They had rhythm, pattern, dot-like chanting. Lena covered her ears. Stop, stop, stop. The fog pulsed again, and when I turned around, my heart nearly stopped. Behind Mark, only a few feet away, stood the girl again, closer than ever, her head tilted, her wet hair dripping, her eyes wide and reflective like shining glass. And then she smiled. A small, unnatural, wrong smile that dragged upward far too slowly. The corners of her mouth trembled like she was learning the gesture for the first time. Mark stumbled backward, falling onto the muddy trail. But the girl didn't step forward. She simply raised her hand and gently pointed at him, her finger trembling, targeting him. Mark lay on the ground, frozen in terror, as the girl pointed at him. Her small arm didn't shake from weakness, but from something else. Effort, intent, focus. Like pointing at him required precision. Don't move, I whispered. I'm not. Mark hissed back. The girl's smile stretched wider, as if she were pleased by his fear. The fog around her thickened, swirling at her ankles like smoke. Her long, soaked hair clung to her face. Her dress sagged off her thin shoulders. She wasn't breathing, not panting, not shivering, not trembling, nothing. She stood unnaturally still, the way a photograph stands still. And then she lowered her arm. At first I thought that meant she was done with us. But then her fingers curled, bending inward, twisting in an unnatural way until her hand formed a tight fist. The ground beneath us pulsed. I felt it through the soles of my boots, a cold, low vibration, like the heartbeat of the forest itself. "We need to move," I whispered. "Now." But Mark couldn't. He was staring into the girl's eyes. "Get up," Lena whispered urgently, grabbing his arm. The girl's smile faded, slowly, like a puppet winding down. Her head tilted the other direction, bones cracking softly with the motion. Then her fist opened. The forest went silent, so silent my ears rang, and then the chanting returned. Not whispers now, clearer, louder, voices layered over each other, echoing from every direction at once. High voices, low voices, a child's voice among them. Mark scrambled backward, finally finding his legs. Lena pulled him up, and we backed away from the girl, step by shaky step. She didn't follow. She just watched, her smile gone, her face blank again, expressionless, mask-like. But the chanting continued, and grew louder. We ran. Branches whipped across our faces. Mud splashed beneath our boots. The fog coiled between trees, guiding us like tunnel walls. Every direction looked wrong. Every path felt manipulated. "We're going in circles," Mark yelled. But we weren't. We couldn't be. The fog wanted us somewhere, pushing us, squeezing us, steering us. After several frantic minutes, the forest opened into a small clearing. In the center stood an old wooden structure. A well-rotten boards framed the circular opening. Moss coated every inch. A rope hung from the beam above it, frayed and dripping wet. The air around the well smelled of stagnant water and rot. Lena grabbed my arm. "No, absolutely not. We're not going near that thing. We don't have a choice," Mark gasped, pointing behind us. The fog had begun to close in again, pushing inward like walls as we stepped toward the well. The chanting stopped abruptly, cut off like someone pressed mute on reality. The silence was suffocating. A faint dripping sound echoed from the well. Drip, drip, drip. I approached cautiously, each step heavy. The inside of the well was pitch black, not dark, black. So black it looked like a hole torn from the world. I leaned in slightly. Something moved. Not water, not an animal, not a reflection, a shape, something pale, round, human-sized. It rose slowly, just enough to catch the faint gray light of face. I jerked backward so hard, I slipped on the wet ground. Lena screamed. Mark staggered away from the well entirely. The pale face hovered just inside the darkness, unmoving, its eyes too wide, mouth slack, hair floating around it like it was submerged underwater. It wasn't the girl, it was an adult, a woman. Her skin wrinkled and bloated, water-swollen, her lips bluish, her eyes milky white, her hair drifting unnaturally, suspended, as if she were forever drowning. She didn't blink, didn't react. She simply hovered there, staring up at us with dead, blank eyes. Then the woman jerked upward an inch, fast, unnatural, like something had yanked her. We leaped backward at the same time. The woman didn't rise further, but her mouth opened, not slowly, not trembling. It snapped open, wide, unhinged, too wide. A guttural sound erupted from the well, a choked gasp, mixed with wet gurgling, like a breath forced through waterlogged lungs. Lena cried out, covering her ears. Mark backed into a tree. "What the hell is that?" The sound cut off, and then the woman's head drifted back down into the darkness, slowly, peacefully, as if being lowered. The darkness swallowed her whole. We stood frozen. Staring. For a moment, nothing happened, and then wet footprints appeared on the ground behind us, one by one, forming a trail, leading from the trees, stopping several feet behind us. I didn't want to turn around. Every instinct said don't, but Lena's breath hitched, and I forced myself to pivot slowly. The girl stood at the tree line, her feet covered in mud, her dress soaked, her hair dripping, her head bowed slightly as if listening to something. Then she looked up. Her face was emotionless again, blank, but something in her eyes looked almost curious. She lifted her hand, not pointing, reaching, as if she wanted one of us to take it. No, Lena whispered. We're not touching her. We can't. The girl dropped her hand, and instantly, the fog surged around her, swirling violently like a storm, spiraling inward. Her small body lifted an inch off the ground, just enough for her toes to hover. Her head rolled back, her mouth dropped open, and from deep in her throat, a woman's voice echoed out, the same voice from the well. Help me. The girl's chest convulsed, the voice warped. Help me, please. Before she finds her words cut off in a sharp, choking sound, then silence. The girl lowered slowly back to the ground, her head tilted forward. Her wet hair fell across her face. Her small arms hung limp at her sides, and in the next blink, she vanished. Gone, replaced by fog. Lena gasped. Where did she? I didn't answer, because every instinct suddenly screamed. We were not alone. Mark turned slowly toward the woods. His voice shook. There's something bigger in the fog. Mark's voice cracked as he stared into the fog. There's something bigger out there. I saw it move. We all turned. The forest was unnaturally still. No wind, no birds, no insects, just the slow, pulsing expansion of the fog, as if something massive was breathing in it. Lena stepped closer to me, clutching my arm. It wasn't just the girl, was it? No, I whispered. It never was. A deep groan vibrated through the trees, distant, but heavy, like a strained exhale from something ancient. The sound rattled the damp branches overhead, shaking loose droplets that fell around us like cold tears. Mark swore under his breath. We have to get out of here, now. We turned away from the well and started back down the trail, moving quickly but carefully. Every step felt heavier than the last, like the air itself didn't want us to leave. The fog grew thicker, close, oppressive, alive. I could barely see 3 feet in front of me. Our own footsteps seemed muffled by the fog, as if it swallowed the sounds before they could echo. Behind us, a new sound emerged, a dragging, slow, wet, deliberate. We all heard it. Lena took a shaky breath. Don't turn around. The dragging grew louder. Something massive scraped across the forest floor, pulling itself through the mud and leaves. The weight of it sent tiny tremors through the ground. Mark whispered. It's following the footprints. The girl's prints. It's using them. The realization made my stomach twist. Whatever lived in the fog wanted her, or wanted what she led to, or wanted us instead. We picked up our pace, almost jogging now. The fog parted slightly as we moved, as if opening just enough to force us down one narrow direction, an unnatural funnel guiding us deeper into the forest. We're being herded, I said. Lena's breath hitched. Why? For what? Before I could answer, a scream tore through the woods. Not a human scream, not a child's scream, a layered, distorted wail like multiple voices screaming through one throat. It echoed off the trees, spiraling through the fog until I couldn't tell where it originated. The dragging stopped, silence, then a second scream. Closer, we broke into a full sprint. Branches slapped our faces, mud splashed beneath our boots. The fog blurred everything, trees became gray streaks. Shadows merged into shapes that watched us pass. Another scream tore through the forest. So close, it vibrated in my bones. Mark shouted, "It's right behind us." We turned sharply down a narrow trail, almost falling over each other. The path curved sharply around a cluster of massive pines, and, when we rounded the bend, we stopped dead. The girl was standing in the middle of the trail, not smiling, not pointing, not reaching, just standing, waiting. Her wet hair clung to her cheeks. Mud dripped down her legs. Her dress looked torn, snagged on brambles. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She was breathing now, like a frightened child. Lena stepped forward cautiously. "You can talk, can't you? You tried before. You tried to warn us." The girl blinked slowly. Then her small hand lifted, trembling, weak. She pointed behind us, not the controlled, deliberate motion from earlier. This was terrified, urgent. We didn't turn right away, but we heard it. The dragging had returned, closer, heavier, accompanied now by a low, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate inside the fog. The girl took a step backward, moving away from the trail, motioning frantically for us to follow. "Wait," I whispered. "She wants us to go with her." Mark shook his head. "Are you insane? She's part of this." "No," Lena said. "She's running from it too." Another deep groan echoed through the woods. Closer this time, so close it shook loose bark from the trees. The girl's eyes widened. She backed into the deeper woods, motioning harder. "Follow her," I yelled. We had no time to argue. We ran after the girl, pushing through thick underbrush. Branches scraped our arms, tearing skin, pulling at clothes. The fog closed in behind us like a wall slamming shut. The girl moved fast, despite her small size. She weaved between fallen logs and dense brush with unnatural ease, guiding us along a path we never would have found on our own. Behind us, the forest erupted. A massive shape crashed through the trees, too large, too loud, too heavy to be anything human or animal. Branches snapped, trunks splintered. The ground trembled beneath its weight. We didn't look back. Not yet. We followed the girl until she led us to a narrow ravine with steep sides. Fog poured into it like liquid, rolling over stones and fallen branches. The girl stopped at the edge, her tiny hand lifted again, pointing downward, into the ravine. "No," Mark whispered. "You've got to be kidding. We'd break our legs." But the girl shook her head violently and pointed harder. Behind us, branches exploded. A massive dark silhouette emerged from the fog. Tall, twisted, limbs too long, shoulders too broad, a dripping, wet mass dragging something behind it. We turned. The thing stepped through the fog. Its form was obscured at first, moving like a shadow painted onto the mist. But as it approached, its features sharpened, skin hanging in waterlogged sheets, arms impossibly long, knuckles dragging the ground, a head tilted too far to one side, a mouth hanging open as if screaming underwater, eyes missing, just dark hollows leaking streamlets of fog. The dragging sound came from what it held, a bundle of torn fabric, a soaked dress, a woman's hand dangling limply. The woman from the well. It was carrying her like a broken doll. Lena screamed. Mark stumbled backward. My legs trembled beneath me. The monster stepped forward, slow, deliberate, intelligent. It knew we were cornered. The girl beside us shook violently, clutching her head. A soft whisper escaped her lips, her voice barely audible. "Jump." I looked at the ravine, steep, rocky, certain injury. I looked at the monster, certain death. "Jump." The girl cried, her voice suddenly loud and clear, echoing through the forest with supernatural force. The creature lunged. We jumped. Wind roared in my ears. The world spun. Branches scraped my arms. Rocks slammed into my side. The ravine swallowed us whole. We tumbled into darkness, and the fog rushed in after us like a living thing. The fall felt endless. Branches whipped past. Rocks tore at my clothes. My body spun, weightless and helpless, until I slammed into a bed of wet leaves at the bottom of the ravine. Pain exploded across my ribs. My breath left me in a violent cough. Somewhere to my left, Mark groaned. To my right, Lena whimpered through shallow breaths. The fog seeped into the ravine after us, cascading like liquid smoke, filling every crack and shadow, until the world became an ocean of gray. The girl landed last slightly, impossibly gently. She touched down like a feather, her feet barely disturbing the leaves. She turned toward us immediately, her eyes those wide. Two empty eyes were filled with urgency and fear. Not malice, not trickery, fear. "Get up," she whispered. "He comes." I forced my body upright, despite every muscle screaming. Mark pulled himself to his knees, clutching his side. Lena pushed her hair out of her face, hand trembling. The girl pointed deeper into the ravine, where narrow stone pathways twisted into the earth. "He can't follow far," she said softly. "Not down here, not whole." "Who?" I asked, breath shaking. "What is that thing?" She didn't answer with words. She just stared at me, then slowly raised her arm and pointed behind us. The sound reached us before we turned, a long, wet dragging, a massive weight shifting above, a horrible grinding moan rolling down the ravine walls. Mark whispered, "No, no, no, no." He followed us. We scrambled to our feet. The girl motioned for us to go left, down the tightest path barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. "We'll get stuck," Lena cried. "He won't," the girl said. "He'll break through." Branches snapped above. Stones tumbled down the ravine wall. The fog churned violently, like something enormous was pushing through it. I didn't think. I ran. We squeezed into the narrow stone passage. My shoulders scraped the rock. Mark's backpack snagged, and he tore it free. Lena sobbed from fear and pain, but kept moving. Behind us, the ravine wall cracked, a massive hand gray, waterlogged. Fingers like tree roots shot down through the fog, clawing at the earth where we'd stood seconds before. The monster roared. The sound wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was the groan of drowned lungs, forcing out water instead of air. And it was angry. We pushed deeper into the tight corridor, which widened suddenly into a cavern-like opening beneath a fallen boulder. The girl slipped through easily and motioned for us to follow. Mark stumbled inside. Lena crawled, gasping. I ducked into the shadows, just as a second massive hand slammed down behind me, gouging rock, inches from my head. I fell forward hard. The girl rushed to us, placing her small hands on our shoulders as the monster clawed at the ravine entrance. "He cannot fit," she whispered. "Not all of him, only pieces." The creature's arm flailed into the space, reaching blindly long, jointless, slick with mud and river water. Its fingers stretched impossibly far, bones bending wrong. Mark grabbed a rock and smashed the hand. The monster's scream shook the earth, but the limb didn't withdraw. It pushed. Deeper. Searching. Reaching. For her. The girl stepped forward, tiny, fragile, trembling, and placed her hand gently on the creature's reaching fingers. Instantly, the monster froze. A deep, shuddering exhale rattled its massive form. The girl closed her eyes, whispering something soft, mournful, in a voice that didn't sound like a child's at all. The monster's arm withdrew slowly, reluctantly, disappearing back into the fog outside. The scraping, dragging, and roaring faded into the forest above. Silence returned, but it wasn't comforting. It was a hollow silence, one heavy with unfinished things. Lena wiped her eyes. "What is he? What are you?" The girl turned, her hair still dripping, her dress torn, her skin too pale, too cold, her voice trembling. "He was looking for me," she whispered. "Why?" I asked. Her eyes lifted to mine, and for the first time, they shimmered with something like grief. "Because I was the first," she said. Mark frowned. "First what?" "The first he drowned." The cavern felt colder, smaller, airless. The girl stepped back, revealing the faint outline of water stains down her dress. Her fingers were wrinkled and pale. Her feet left no footprints on the dirt floor. Lena choked on a breath. You're not alive." The girl shook her head slowly. "I'm not," she whispered, "but he is, and he can't rest until he finds the ones he lost. He pulls them back into the fog. He keeps their breaths. He keeps their faces." Mark's voice cracked. Why show yourself to us? Because you followed my footprints, she said simply. You were already his. My stomach dropped. We can get out, right? I asked. If we climb out, if we run. The girl's expression softened into something like pity. You won't escape him, she said. Not forever. I shook my head, refusing to accept it. We're alive. We made it. He didn't get us. Her small hand lifted toward the wall behind me, where 3 new sets of footprints, wet fresh, appeared on the stone floor. Our footprints, except they weren't footsteps going forward. They were footsteps coming toward us. From deeper in the cavern, Lena screamed. Mark stumbled backward. I stared in horror as the footprints slowly, deliberately continued, appearing one after another, approaching us. The girl whispered, He already has your reflections. It won't be long before he has the rest of you. The fog began seeping into the cavern, slow, thick, hungry. The girl stepped backward into it. Her outline faded. Her eyes glowed faintly. Then she whispered one final thing. When you hear him breathe again, don't run, don't hide. It only makes him follow faster. Her face dissolved into the fog, and then a sound echoed through the cavern. A wet, rattling inhale. From behind us,